In 2024, something happened that had not occurred since the Cold War. The world faced a shortage that could not be solved with money. Companies were ready to pay any price. Governments were willing to sign any contract, and yet computing power was still not available. GPU, Graphics Processing Unit, a specialized processor designed for massive parallel computation, the core hardware used today to train artificial intelligence models. Queues for access to GPUs stretched for months, not for gamers, for startups, universities, government agencies. That was the moment it became clear. Artificial intelligence was no longer just a technology. It had become a strategic resource, and the question was no longer who had the best AI. The real question was, who controls access to computing power, and who has learned how to obtain it even when access is officially closed? Look at this object. This is the NVIDIA H100, a graphics processor. But today it is no longer just hardware. It is one of the most scarce and strategically important resources on the planet. These chips sit at the core of modern artificial intelligence models. And artificial intelligence is no longer about chatbots and startups. It is about intelligence gathering, military planning, economic power, and control. In the fall of 2022, Washington reached a conclusion. China must not gain direct access to these technologies. The White House imposed strict export controls on advanced GPUs and AI training equipment. The logic was simple. Control the hardware. Slow down your competitors' AI development. For the first time, computing power became a geopolitical asset, on par with oil, gas, and weapons. GPUs were officially reclassified as strategic resources. By 2024, some companies openly admitted that access to the H100 mattered more than capital. The money was there. The compute was not. A rare moment when the market hit not a financial limit, but a physical ceiling of capacity. Now fast forward to 2025. Chinese technology companies continue to demonstrate rapid and sustained progress in AI. An uncomfortable question emerges. Where is the compute coming from? Public data, indirect indicators, infrastructure shifts, all point to a different answer. Instead of direct deliveries, a distributed bypass system has emerged. A system where compute is rented, not owned. Access matters more than possession. Money moves outside traditional banking rails, and sanctions collide not with smuggling, but with code. In this system, a central role is played by stablecoins such as Tether, and by crypto infrastructure that enables payments for energy and computing power outside the traditional dollar system. Today, we will break down the anatomy of this system, from electronics markets and intermediaries in Asia to data centers and compute clusters inside the United States. Welcome to a reality where technology evolves faster than geopolitics. Ghost markets and ant logistics. The story begins in Shenzhen, at the Huaqiangbei electronics market. It is important to understand this. Huaqiangbei is not an underground market in the classic sense. It is a market that exists between the rules. For decades, it has serviced gray market electronics exports, supply chain recovery, rapid adaptation to restrictions. Historically, markets like this rebuilt supply chains after trade wars, embargoes, technological ruptures. Formally, it is the largest electronics market in the world. Kilometers of stalls, thousands of vendors, millions of components. Unofficially, it is a node in global supply chains, where gray imports, resellers, and intermediaries intersect. Export-restricted chips do not sit in display cases, but market participants know where real deals happen, not on the ground floor, but in offices and service companies above the market. According to industry investigations and journalistic reporting, advanced GPUs are resold through multi-layered intermediary networks. Prices in these chains can be several times higher than official pricing, driven by risk, scarcity, and demand from AI developers. Then comes the next question. Even if you find the chip, how do you pay for it? We are not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. We are talking about millions. A bank transfer in such cases is almost guaranteed to be blocked. International payments pass through correspondent banks, and therefore fall under U.S. sanctions control. This is where an alternative financial infrastructure appears. According to law enforcement reports and investigations, these chains frequently rely on OTC brokers, over-the-counter intermediaries. Their role is simple: enable settlements outside the traditional banking system. According to analytics firms, the majority of USDT volume does not come from the US or Europe, but from Asia, the Middle East, and emerging markets. For many regions, USDT has become not an alternative to banks, but a functional replacement for cross-border settlement. Yuan is converted into stablecoins, most often USDT, which is then used for international payments between intermediaries in different jurisdictions. This is not about anonymity. It is about the absence of banking choke points. But payment is only half the problem. The other half is logistics. And here the system failed in an unexpected place. In late 2025, U.S. federal authorities revealed that the leakage was not happening in Asia. It was happening inside the United States. Case 1. Ghost warehouses. According to prosecutors, a network of intermediaries purchased export-controlled NVIDIA H100 chips through shell companies, then aggregated them in ghost warehouses across multiple U.S. states. There, original NVIDIA markings were removed, serial numbers altered, and the GPUs repackaged under fictitious brands. The cargo was then exported as general-purpose server components. The total value of seized technology and assets in a single case exceeded $150 million. But how do you move such cargo? High-value components are often broken into many small shipments. In logistics, this is known as the ant model, or fragmented shipping. Case 2. Neutral hubs. In another case uncovered in 2025, the key feature was multi-stage transit. NVIDIA chips were legally purchased in the United States, then shipped to Singapore and Malaysia, countries not subject to direct export bans. There, documentation changed, end users changed, product descriptions changed. Only then did the equipment move onward to China. Court filings emphasized a critical point. No single step in the chain appeared illegal on its own. The violation emerged only at the level of the entire system. The result is a structure where money moves faster than regulators, logistics dissolve into noise, and oversight loses the full picture. In this architecture, USDT is not a weapon. It functions as technical lubrication, allowing the system to operate without friction between jurisdictions. Energy in exile. A logical question follows. If crypto mining has been officially banned in China since 2021, where does the crypto infrastructure come from? The answer is not obvious. The ban eliminated public mining, not mining itself. Research from the Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance shows that after the ban, China disappeared from official statistics, but the global hash rate did not redistribute as sharply as expected. Experts note that part of the capacity moved into decentralized and difficult-to-measure formats. The key factor here is energy. In regions such as Sichuan and Yunnan, thousands of small and mid-sized hydroelectric plants generate surplus power. With weak grid integration, this is known as stranded energy. The electricity exists. Transmitting it is difficult. Under these conditions, local solutions emerge. Industry investigations periodically document small, mobile mining clusters, connected directly to generation sources, not centralized farms, but distributed infrastructure. Economically, the logic is simple. Mining allows local energy to be converted into a globally liquid digital asset without exporting electricity. This model is not unique to China. It exists in Iceland, Canada, and Latin America. Bitcoin mined under these conditions does not necessarily reach public exchanges. It can be used as a settlement tool, collateral, or an intermediate asset, often via stablecoins. The result is a closed loop: local energy, compute, crypto asset, settlements. This is not a secret plan. It is adaptation to fragmentation. Rented compute. Physical smuggling is always vulnerable, but there is another approach, one that does not require moving chips at all: access instead of ownership. U.S. export controls focus on hardware shipments. Remote access to compute is regulated far more weakly. Modern computation is no longer local. AI is trained where the power exists. A chip can be located in the United States, owned by an American company, yet used remotely. In recent years, projects have emerged offering decentralized compute rental. Disconnected GPUs are aggregated into networks, where capacity can be rented without traditional cloud providers. This sector is known as DePIN, decentralized physical infrastructure. Think Airbnb, not for apartments, but for servers. Case 3. Compute smuggling. Before 2024, the idea of controlling remote compute access was largely theoretical. By 2025, that changed. After investigations and closed congressional briefings, it became clear. Physical control of chips does not equal control of computation. A GPU may sit in a US data center, yet be used remotely from Beijing through distributed networks. For the first time, the United States effectively acknowledged a new form of circumvention, not smuggling hardware, but smuggling compute. This is why, in 2024 and 2025, US regulators began discussing controls not only on chips, but on AI cloud access itself. Because in the AI era, controlling hardware no longer guarantees security. The tether paradox. Physical supply chains, energy, remote compute. All routes converge on one foundation: settlements. Here enters tether, one of the great paradoxes of modern technological conflict. USDT is not a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. Its price is not meant to fluctuate. It is a stable coin, digital money pegged to fiat currency. In practice, USDT is a digital version of cash dollars, moving across the internet without banks, without SWIFT, without correspondent accounts. The United States relies on dollar dominance as a control mechanism. Yet the private, digital form of the dollar proves uniquely suited to bypass restrictions. USDT requires no bank account, and it moves faster than traditional payments. Why does this system persist despite strict sanctions policy? Because USDT has become critical infrastructure. A sudden attack on it would trigger systemic risk, affecting not only traders, but institutional markets. Early investigations, including Bloomberg reporting, raised questions about reserve composition, including exposure to Asian commercial paper. Later, Tether reported a shift toward US treasuries. This is not about Chinese control over Tether. It is about financial entanglement that cannot be severed without consequences. A private digital dollar becomes universal settlement, where traditional dollars are constrained, not as a weapon, but as a byproduct of globalization. The end of the control era. At this point, the conclusion becomes clear. This is no longer about smuggling, crypto, or chips alone. It is about the failure of an old control model. In the 20th century, power meant aircraft carriers, or cutting a country off from the financial system. In the 21st century, those tools increasingly fail. The NVIDIA chip story is not a glitch. It is a symptom. Technology has become too liquid. It can be fragmented, hidden inside services, or transmitted as pure computation. Money has undergone the same transformation, becoming code. While Washington debates new restrictions, Asian tech hubs adapt through infrastructure. Rather than confrontation, the so-called Silicon Wall turns out not to be a wall, but a set of regulatory gaps. When Washington blinked. In early 2026, the United States made a controversial decision. Exports of certain next-generation NVIDIA GPUs to China were partially permitted under conditions. Critics immediately pointed out the flaw. End-use control is nearly impossible in a world of distributed compute. It was an implicit admission. Absolute technological control is no longer achievable. Not because the system failed, but because reality moved on. We are entering an era where wars are fought not over territory or currency, but over infrastructure, quietly, distributed, without announcements. And the winner is not the one who speaks loudest about control, but the one who adapts fastest to a world where code moves faster than geopolitics. History shows, infrastructure always comes before rules, and rules are almost always written after the fact.